I'm super excited to be here as I guess the first part of our social impact series. And I'll be walking you through how to identify a social problem. And the reason why I like this specific section is because it's often the most neglected, but the most important. Right? One of the biggest mistakes you can make as an entrepreneur is to jump straight to a solution and then to find out that nobody wants what you're offering, right? So we're going to walk through how to do that. Here's a brief overview. So today we're going to cover, like I said, understanding social problems, also problem solving through entrepreneurship, how to choose a cause to potentially build a business around, research methodologies, the importance of data, how to align the problem with your goals. We're going to walk through a specific process to do that. But first, who the heck am I? So, I'm an entrepreneur with over 15 years of experience. I started side hustles when I was in seventh grade, all right, even earlier. I've just always liked the idea of taking an idea and creating something that people want. I founded a couple of 6 and 7 figure startups. I was a founder of Male Standard, which is a men's lifestyle website, kind of like a GQ magazine or AskMen.com. And in that business, I learned how to partner with brands like Gillette, Dove Men, this whole concept of influencer marketing, and also how a business could be used to create a really cool lifestyle. Fast forward from there, me and the buddy decide to pivot into food of all places. And we end up launching the world's first keto cookie based on the keto diet. And we were able to turn that business from 3 grand to over 7 figures and grow out of mom's kitchen all the way to a deal on Shark Tank, which is pretty cool. I'm also a mentor here at the Startup Incubator. So if you guys do decide to do the incubator, I might get paired with one of you guys and guide you through that journey. I'm also a business coach and a consultant. But the thing is, why social enterprise, right? So a couple of years back, I had a whole like a really rough moment in my life, right? One of the businesses that I'd spent so much time building, it didn't work out. And I lost a lot of confidence in myself. And I decided to take like a kind of a sabbatical. And I took a trip to Mexico. I went to Oaxaca. And through this journey, I fell in love. If you look at this picture, there's actually a lady making a bag using a traditional method that's been used for thousands of years, since the time of the Mayas. And tourism and stuff was being affected because of COVID. And I said, you know what? I wonder if I can help these ladies sell their bags, right? So I went and I bought a bunch of bags and I researched what fair trade pricing was and how to navigate that. And then I just said, okay, I wonder if I can sell these online. And they sold out, and they sold out, and they sold out. But what was cool is it was that moment when I realized that business could be a tool for creating change in the world. See, up until this point, I used to think that social causes and entrepreneurship were like this, right? I'm the son of immigrants. I've seen a lot of how poverty or systemic issues can affect the community. So I was very into helping my community, right? But I also wanted a Ferrari. Like I want to be like an Elon Musk or a Steve Jobs. I look at the stuff that they create, it's incredible. And I was like, how can you be a man of the people but still do something like this? And it was through this experience that I realized that if crafted properly, a business can fuel and can actually help you impact more people. So through that process, I created a fun project. It was called Niarani. The word stands for Together We Grow in the indigenous Purepecha language of the people of Michoacan. And again, it was cool. I learned how to build relationships and how to grow a business. Now, from that to this, right, it wasn't just a general idea. I went through a specific process of identifying a problem, and I'm going to show you how. But in this instance, what is a social problem? So, a social problem is an issue that negatively affects a significant number of individuals within a society, often caused by factors beyond their immediate control. So an example of social problems is systemic issues, right? So we talk about economic disparities, poverty, lack of access to resources, education, and those problems impact communities, right? They have widespread consequences, especially if nothing's done about them, right? You get a decreased quality of life, you get suffering, you get hindered social progress. And what that creates is a need for a change. Now, just because we're passionate about something, which is great, doesn't necessarily mean that it's a big enough problem to create a business around. And that's what we're going to walk through in a little bit. But the beautiful part of all of this is that problem solving is entrepreneurship. It's what you do. If you ask any successful entrepreneur how to grow, how to make more money, a lot of times they're going to say, well, find a problem somebody has and solve it for them, right? That's your job. Now, the slight angle of a social entrepreneur is they look for social and environmental issues to solve. And you're able to make difference through a business and you're able to combine profit and purpose. One of the really cool things that I like about social enterprise is this concept of a triple bottom line. So in traditional business, you have your bottom line, which is profit. In a social enterprise, you have profit, people, and planet, right? So you're not just going after one metric, you're also seeing how you're affecting society. So first, we start with the problem. Don't create a solution looking for a problem. I can't tell you how many times I've done it and I see it happen, right? We're spending hours and in our savings on this idea, this product that's going to be perfect, right? We obsess over the logo, we obsess over all of these features, and then we launch it and we realize nobody wants what we have to sell. The alternative approach is to let your customer, let your market tell you what they want to create. We start with a problem first. So it's important for us to understand the scope and the impact of the problem and verify, validate that it's real before we jump in and start creating a solution. That's why it's also a skipped part of entrepreneurship because we want to get to the solution. It's fun to create the product. It's not always the most fun to do this, but it's a foundational principle. But it's important to find a problem that you care about, right? So throughout this, I'm talking about making sure that a problem is real. We're looking at external factors. We're going to look at data. We're going to look at interviews. But in the end, it does have to be something that you care about, right? So think of it almost like a Venn diagram. In one circle, it's your passion, your mission, your values. And the other circle, it's the data, the opportunity, showing you that it's real. It's in that middle part where the sweet spot is. So a lot of times, I think just with entrepreneurship in general, our own pain and our own suffering dictates what we create, right? So I grew up, for example, like I mentioned, seeing a lot of income inequality, a lot of things going on, and a lot of the businesses that I've created in the end are really about helping people and empowering people to become their best selves, right? So think about what you're passionate about, and then let's see if we can match it up with a real opportunity. Let's say you already have a business and you're considering pivoting to a social enterprise. A couple of things to keep in mind is you want to make sure that it's a relevant social issue that aligns with your company's mission. You don't want to just choose a random social cause that has nothing to do with your business, right? So make sure that it aligns with your mission. Make sure that you can evaluate the impact potential, create some goals, get stakeholder engagement. That's your customers, your investors, your partners, your managers, and your team, and measure and report the impact. One of my favorite social enterprise companies is this brand called Nisolo, Nisolo. And they make leather shoes. But what's cool about them is they have factories in Peru. They hire people there. They also fund like schools, education. But on their website, once a year, they do their annual impact report. And it's super transparent. It shows how much money went where, who was impacted, who was helped. So whatever it is that you do, we need to make sure that we measure and we report on that impact. Because not only does it help us know that we're on track, but it also helps us tell the story, right? When it comes to any social enterprise, a story and your why is going to be a big reason for its success in getting people to buy in. I already mentioned a couple of examples of social problems, but climate change, environmental degradation, poverty, gender and racial discrimination, food insecurity. So how do we find a problem that's worth solving? Well, market research, data. The cool thing about the world that we live in is people are already telling us what they want and what they need, right? That's why it's important to do thorough research. We're going to talk about primary and secondary research and also how to use interviews and surveys to really find out what we don't know. A lot of times the real juicy stuff is stuff that we don't even know that we don't know. So let me give you a kind of an example. There's a company that I mentor, that I coach. Initially, they wanted to start like an e-commerce brand. They wanted to sell stuff online. So we started talking about what are they interested in, what's their passion, and they loved animals. Okay, great, right? But that wasn't enough to move forward. So what we did is I had them walk through a process where we did research to understand first, at a very high level, what are the most popular and profitable types of e-commerce businesses that exist, right? So that already gives you certain categories to look at. From there, what was growing, what was declining? We ended up finding out that people spend a lot of money on their pets, not just pets, but older pets. So we ended up pivoting and actually launching a shop specifically focused on helping older pets, right? So that's kind of an example of how you can use market research, and I'm going to give you more examples as we move forward. Like I said, we have primary and secondary research. Give me one. I'm back. Sorry, I have little kids running around in the background. All right, so we've got primary and we've got secondary research. So primary research is typically surveys, interviews, and focus groups. The thing about it is it's very time intensive and a lot of times it's expensive to do. Then you have what's known as secondary research, which is basically things that already exist, free, low cost. So this is a chart showing the difference between secondary and primary research. A lot of times when it comes to any new venture, you want to start with secondary research. So let's say, let me think of an example where I can kind of walk through some of this. Let's say we want to address poverty in a certain city. Let's say Orange County, by where I live, right? There's a lot of data existing about poverty, about trends, about existing programs, about what's working, about what's not. There's also, even at a higher level, studies on what causes poverty, right? The cycle of poverty. That's all secondary research. Now, if we wanted to do primary research, we want to focus specifically on those with the problem, right? Or those trying to help others with the problem. And that's where we use things like interviews and surveys. We ask, what are your challenges? What are your existing alternatives? And that a lot of times will help us to narrow down. So let's say secondary research is like a target. Primary research helps us get even more specific into that process. Like Philip mentioned, this is going to be emailed to you, but these are just some secondary research resources. You can use Statista, Google, data.gov, the Census Bureau. Um, I'm going to give you an example. I have a startup right now that I'm working on, It's called Santana Snacks. And basically, we're making traditional Mexican snacks, but in a clean, organic way, right? I have a background in food businesses, but the way that I was able to specifically focus on this and know that this is what I wanted to do is first, I did a Google search and I wanted to understand overall snack trends, right? Very high level. What it showed me was compared to keto, compared to Atkins, which is kind of like keto, compared to low carb and all this, the specific category that was growing the fastest was organic. I was very surprised. I also learned that people are willing to spend more money on organic food than any other type of food category. Interesting. So I took that data and I started to kind of work on like a synopsis. Okay, so well, if I was to create a snack, where should I start? Well, maybe I'll start with organic, right? Because of X, Y, and Z. So secondary research was super important. Once I understood that organic was what I wanted to look at, I started to look at market research. There's a lot of free market research reports out there. You can search for industry report, organic snacks. It might be a year or two late because it's already published, but you're going to get a lot of insights. Okay, so that's an example of secondary research. Now, primary research, surveys, questionnaires. The one that I think is the most important is interviews. The difference between an interview and a survey is an interview is a bit more open-ended. Surveys are more, I've got 25 questions and here are the options and choose. The importance of an interview and the power of an interview, I kind of alluded to it, and it's finding out what you don't know, right? So going back to problem, right? One of the problems, so when I was doing the chips, I had an idea and I assumed that a lot of people in my target market were having a hard time finding snacks that were nostalgic, right? These chips. They missed them because of health concerns, right? Like they're really bad for you. They're packed with junk. That's an assumption. And yes, secondary research gave me some ideas, but it wasn't until I actually asked people in an interview, I said, hey, so what are your biggest problems right now, even at a high level with health? What kind of foods do you miss the most and wish you could have? Oh my God, snacks. Initially, I thought I was gonna make like a candy, but what came up over and over were chips, right? And a specific type of chip. So I used the information I gained through my interviews to then create a survey. Now, that survey was a little more specific. If you could choose a certain snack food in this category, what would it be? And then the data showed me, hey, I want to create these snacks to solve this specific problem, and I want to create it in a way that's healthy, right? So I have a passion for food. I have a passion for helping people with health issues, right? There's just a lot of obesity, a lot of kids that are struggling with diabetes at a super young age. So I was able to take that passion and take the data of knowing that organic foods are rising and knowing that people actually have this problem, and that helped me design my solution. We'll be answering questions after, so if that's a little too complex, let me know. But I kind of just want to take you through how you can use this and an example of how we can use this in our own businesses. So how do we conduct effective interviews? Well, we want to know what we're trying to solve for. So very specifically, what is the problem or the unknown that you want to find out? You want to select participants. In the beginning, I wouldn't assume who your target customer is. Keep it a little more broad. We prepare questions, but not too many. You want to keep it very open. Establish rapport. So just very simple. Hey, thank you for taking the time. And then active listening. Okay, so it's actually not recommended for you to record because when people know they're being recorded, a wall goes up, right? You can probably take notes, written notes, but just active listening is basically listening without the intent to answer. A lot of times we listen and we're already thinking of what we're going to say, and we mute out what people are telling us. Be open, practice active listening. Then after each interview, you want to analyze and synthesize. So an example interview. I'm going to pick out a couple of these questions and talk about them a little bit. So tell me about your experience with XYZ problem. This is a very good question at just getting them to tell you what their challenges are. Then you want to find out, what they believe the root causes are to this problem. And my favorite one here is, are there any existing solutions or initiatives aimed at addressing this problem? Look, if your problem is big enough, there will be competition. And that's a good sign because it means that there's an actual market for this. So by understanding what they've tried and what's worked or what has not worked will give you a ton of data for you to create your solution. Let me bring it back to chips. I asked, what do you currently eat to fill this gap? People started telling me things like Kind Bars or Siete chips, like these other brands, which now let me go and analyze them and understand what is their messaging? How are they trying to solve this problem? How much are they charging, right? There's just so much data. I can look at reviews on Amazon and see what are the biggest complaints that people have. Are these common complaints in the space, aka problems? Can I solve this through my product, through my service, through my solution? Let's see. These are a couple more questions. So, what are some potential barriers to solving the problem? And then a really good one is leaving the last one very open-ended. Is there anything else you would like to share or any other perspectives that you think are important when addressing this problem? Again, open-ended questions. One thing too is you either when you finish, you can ask them, is there anybody else you recommend that I reach out to? So you get referrals. And also ask if you can follow up with them in the future, because interestingly enough, a lot of times the people that you interview will become your first customers. They will become your early adopters for a few reasons, but one is they feel like they've helped create the solution, which is great. The big takeaway from all of this is you need to prioritize customer development before going to market, right? It's back to the same concept of understand the problem before you create a solution. Focus at least 2 months on customer development. There's a saying, a belief that until you've spoken to 100 prospective customers, you don't know your market. All right, so you want to conduct open-ended interviews. And like I said, a lot of these are going to be your initial customers. Make them a part of the journey. Again, something that I did in the launch of our snack, we're pre-launch. But as I was interviewing people, as I was reaching out and surveying people, we were able to build up a pretty big waiting list. It was about 20,000 people. And what's happened is I've updated them on the whole journey, like a behind the scenes journey, right? Like, hey guys, we just locked in a manufacturer. Oh my God, look at these samples. Ugh, they don't taste good. These are awesome. The whole way we've been making them a part of the journey so that when we do launch, they're already engaged and have a relationship with it. So make sure to solve a real problem. Make sure you understand the problem and its scope. How big is it? How big can your potential impact be? Understand the underlying factors that are contributing to this and find a way to address the issue in a unique way, right? In traditional business is this concept is your UVP, your unique value proposition. How are you different and how are you better than the alternative solutions? Can the problem be improved, right? Will it take a ton of resources that maybe you don't have yet? Should you start smaller? Should you go bigger, right? Are there opportunities to innovate? Assess the feasibility of new solutions. Don't create them, but assess the potential for new solutions. And really look at how your idea can make a difference. Can you model yourself after something that already exists, maybe in a different industry, solving a different problem that you can implement in what you're trying to do. So how do we identify problems? We start first with personal experience and knowledge. But remember, that's not enough. That's the seed that gets us to start. Connect with experts, professionals. There is a lot of, like, I mean, the fact that you're here says a lot, right? Stay informed, news articles. One of the things that I like to do is, so I have somebody on my team that sends me a monthly media update. So basically, they target certain keywords, certain competitors, certain keywords in the space, and they'll create a Google alert. So anytime a Google alert, somebody mentions that on Google, they get an email. Then they turn this into a report and they send it to me once a month. So whatever it is, understand your space like the back of your hand, right? Understand trends, understand data, and you can have the problems, the information come to you. Here are a couple of sustainable development goals. We've mentioned a couple, but chances are what you're going after, if you're doing a social enterprise, it falls in one of these buckets, right? You're either addressing poverty or hunger, education, inequality, climate change. Again, this presentation is going to be sent to you guys, but if you're having any problems kind of determining what you should target, look at these 17 boxes and you'll get a really good idea and narrow yourself down from there. Now, assessing the problem alignment with your goals. Remember I talked about the Venn diagram? This is why it's really important. Get a clear idea of what your personal mission is, and then see if your problem aligns with it. I have a really cool exercise. I learned it from Tim Ferriss. I'm a big Tim Ferriss 4-Hour Workweek fan. And he says, he has this exercise called Be Do Have. And basically it's, if you already had $10 million in the bank, never had to worry about money ever again, you had unlimited talent and potential, what would you do with your time? Who would you be, right? What this does is it takes those barriers out of the way and it lets you know what you really care about. So as I've done this exercise, and I alluded to it a little before, for me, it's I get passionate about helping people tap into their full potential, right? That's my why. So ask yourself, if the barriers were out of the way, if money, income, whatever wasn't in the cards, or if you wouldn't reach your goal for 10 years, would you still do this? If not, what would you do? And also, it's important to consider your skills, knowledge, and resources. So one of the things that I geek out about a lot is I take a lot of personality tests. There's one called, it's from Ray Dalio. It's called, oh geez, I'm blanking on it. I'll find it right in a bit, but Ray Dalio personality test on Google and you'll find it. You want to know what your current strengths are and you want to align with them. The worst thing to do is try to turn a weakness into a strength, because all you do is end up with mediocrity. So what are your strengths? Who do you already know? What are the resources you have? And how does that help you solve the problem that you're trying to solve? Assess the impact of your proposed solution and ensure you have the passion to drive your project. That's why it's so important to tap into your why, because it's going to take longer than you think. It's going to take more money than you think. It's going to take a lot of resilience. If you're not in love with your why, if you're not in love with the meaning behind what you're trying to do, it's going to be very hard to stay on track, right? It's about patience and it's about resilience and it's about staying on that track. So to conclude, before we go to questions, social problems require innovative solutions for positive, long-lasting change. It's through research and data where we learn if a problem is worth solving. Social entrepreneurship combines profit and purpose. Basically, business becomes a vehicle for social change. Identifying social problems and taking action through social entrepreneurship can create a better future for all. The fact that you're here, the fact that you want to impact the world says a lot about you. Hopefully I was able to provide some guidance, and I'm going to stop